So the end of another Cheltenham Festival. I'll start with, as ever, the opening race here, the Triumph Hurdle, been the first race for a very long time now, well before the 4-day festival. And an impressive win for Vauban here, in the horse's only third run over hurdles. He actually only made his debut on the 31st of December, coming a close second round Pied Piper, and then winning the spring juvenile hurdle at the Leopardstown Dublin meeting, before winning here. Certainly has a good future, you'd think. Very experienced, made a novice mistake at a final hurdle, and you wondered then when he was challenged by both Fielder and Pied Piper what he would find. We found a lot, really, and went on to win quite easily under Paul Townend. So we'll see what happens with him. Talk of a champion hurdle, there's always the issue about 5 runs winning the champion hurdle, though there's only been 3 for a very long time now, since the 70s actually, and the first 2 of them, and if that's possible, the first 2 of them were in a way slightly lucky. See, then in 85, great champion hurdle, of course, won champion hurdle 3 times in a row between 85 and 87, but the shenanigans with Brown's Gazette, your odds-on favourite, ducking out at the start, and there's always a question about Dermot Brown, because he later on in his career admitted to pulling horses. Was he a crook then, or was he just a crook later on? And there's always a debate. Dermot Brown's actually 90 was a crook then, but he's a crook later on. And I heard another story about him, which was slightly dubious later on, although that's a little less varied to that story. But we don't know about what happened there. But she may have won anyway. Then was Catch It in 2008 and was with a favourite size of Europe, because it became a top quality 2-mile chaser winning the champion chase, going Wong, and may well have won that race anyway. And it was a poor champion hurdle Catch It won. And then Spirit Elan back in 2019. But in that race, again, where the quality wasn't outstanding. Riverdale won the last 2 years, maybe wasn't quite a horse he had been, and fell. And the 2, and Lorena Apple's Jade, the 2 fancied mares, both very disappointing. So it was a bit of a disappointing race there as well. Well, Spirit Elan was brilliant in that race. It's such a tragedy when he picked up a fatal injury later in the year. I think he originally picked the injury, probably ended his career, and sadly it ended, and later on in the year he was found he couldn't be saved. And Tigers have won well in the Champion League without winning it, so we'll see. But Honeysuckle's a good horse, of course, and we're going to decide what happens to Sir Gerhard and Constitution Hill. So it could be a tough champion hurdle battle next year if horse is going to go there. Because he's going chasing. I don't know if the horse is a chaser. I haven't seen the horse, so I don't know. I mean, 5-year-old, a little young, of course, because looking to 5-year-old, no 5-year-old allowance anymore. But it's a great win for horse. So we'll see what happens with him later on. My horse, Luna Power, was a heavy outsider in the race anyway, and ran a bit, I have to say, like one. Never really dangerous, finishing in 8th place, but really never dangerous in the entire race. The steward supporter meeting here that Danny Mullins on Illatop saying he was placed 5th and he won 2-3 early on. County Hurdle won by State Man, a bit talking horse at preview events I went to both at Newcastle. Was also the nap of Matt Nichols, the assistant to Kim Bailey, who said to back horse whatever horse ran in. At this point, at the end of last week, he wasn't necessarily going to win the County Hurdle, but Matt Nichols saying whichever race he ran in to back him in, and he was very impressive. Again, an experienced hurdler. Often County Hurdles run by those sort of horses. 5-year-old. Interesting to see, of course, his career here. He actually was running a toy in May 2020, and then after that didn't run until Boxing Day 2021. Leopardstown, the maiden hurdle, and he was also on favourite as well. So we're saying they're well up there when the horse fell. Then won the maiden hurdle easily at Limerick by 12 lengths, and then wins this. Obviously, it got mashed up in my handicap. Racing Post, I think, was all about racing TV, not saying on Twitter, saying what horse could be, what horse future might be. As a question mark, not a statement, I think, from them. Just wondering what horse could be like. We don't know. Which is, of course, a great victory for him. And also, because have mashed up a handicap. So whether they have a chance to take advantage of a handicap mark before the end of the season, that might be possible. We'll see what Mullins decides to do there. Obviously, it's a possibility, maybe more than a shot at the novice hurdle, maybe pushed to a festival. And then we'll see what happens next year. Again, as my want, can sometimes be going for heavy outside here, Felix Auger, and 10th place, never really going well enough. Up midfield ran okay, but nothing particularly interesting, frankly. Stewart saying that one of the horses had a few quid on as well, Tax for Max. It was one I think nobody was ever really involved either. Ruther Berg was unplaced, and another horse I had a few quid on, stumbled, ran into the back of the hill with Tax for Max, who actually made that horse fall. And then with Bloomfield Berg getting apparently you saying was to end up being tight for room. Done again for getting a hefty 5-day ban here on declared to Buffo for using a trip one out of contention after a final hurdle. And Jack Andrews was saying that Stepnick also was up the pace early on, was pulled up and stopped quickly, but vets could find no obvious issue wrong with the horse. Now, in a way, as the Abbott Bartlett hurdle, known as the Spa hurdle officially, as an awful situation happened with Ginto. Would the horse have won? Possibly, and I think there's a very good chance he would have done. It's one of these things I don't really want to watch race again to see how well he was going, because of what happened to the poor horse. It's what happens sadly in racing sometimes, that the horse just goes wrong, and it happens to animals. And it's just a terrible situation, and rather ruined the race really. Hillcrest, the favourite, was never really going. I actually thought I didn't realize about half a minute behind when I was watching on ITV Player. And I thought, I was looking better for just before I thought for start. I think, why is he at 5-1? And then I realised it's Hillcrest, and then I realised I saw something quickly from Greg Cunningham on Twitter at the same time, saying that he was fat odds after the first hurdle. I realised it's about 15 seconds behind actually, or something, on what I was watching. But both favourites, one informing one having a tragic accident, it did rather devalue the form. For Niceco won it well though, staying on strongly. But I'm saying the form could well be devalued. No win for Mullins. Second for Mullins as well, of course, with Mela Kakuna. There was always some debate about Mela Kakuna, who was a different horse, who was actually a possibility at one point for the race, but actually then got injured. Went for Green Book in the race, so actually came fifth. Was a bit normal. It was quite somewhere back with all really. There was quite a slight gap between every single horse here, about at least over 4 lengths between first, second and third and fourth and fifth. I went okay, but never really perhaps getting close enough. But obviously the terrible taste in my mouth of what happened to Paul Ginto. The stewards reports Hillcrest, with Richard Patrick as jockey, saying that the horse was never travelling, and Henry Daly could give no explanation of what happened, and the vet said they couldn't find anything obviously yet wrong with the horse, so we don't know. Racing Post analysis saying possibly mentioning the going might have been an issue for Hillcrest. Although why, I have to say, the horse has won 3 times as good to soft, as well as running soft, run and heavy. So really, I'm not sure it's the best of going. I will find out. We'll find out whether the horse wasn't good enough on the day generally, or whether it's something made wrong with the horse. We'll find out later on in its career, hopefully. Perhaps it'll be back for Aintree, maybe Punchestown. See, not one to write off yet, anyway. And we're talking of a horse as a chaser, very supposed to saying that as well. So maybe we can figure this one, certainly. But although, I move on to the Gold Cup, and a brilliant win for Plutard. I had a great view between Malorinder and Plutard. Those are 2 horses I felt, using Westmore's ratings and my own view, I thought it was probably between the 2, and Malorinder was just a better price than Plutard was. Golden Holmes said I thought Malorinder actually had it. I thought he was pulling away, but very coming to final first clear, he seemed to be running out of steam a bit, and Plutard just flew up the hill. A magnificent performance. I don't think I've seen an acceleration like that in a Gold Cup before, actually. I'm trying to think, Best Mate, when he won in 2003, just pulled away, and I did say away from him. It was gone clear by that point anyway, but it was a mile clear and brilliant performance then. And I think that might be the performance which maybe it's most similar to. 50 lengths at the end. It was quite close. I remember fighting to not that long from the end. But great performance up Plutard. Of course, Rachel Blackmore, the Golden Girl of racing currently, magnificent. Though I was thinking to myself a little earlier, and this is probably last year, when Amy P. McCoy had a few years beforehand said that female jockeys should get £3, I'm now thinking, should male jockeys get £3? People say, that's AP McCoy, when they think she'll be very well now. She's where Blackman's now won the Champion Hurdle, Gold Cup, and Grand National in her career. Absolutely fantastic rider, just of male, female, anybody. It's just a fantastic effort. I can't be that many jockeys who won those 3 races. I should have looked into it at some point, but not many have won all 3 of those, certainly. So in the top jockeys of history, really, if you're thinking of what she's actually won. And I want you again to Henry de Romhead, top quality Irish trainer. Protectorate just made a slap stick last, just held off against Galvin for 3rd place. Protectorate, what people saying, I felt he wasn't going to be good enough, I think, for a Gold Cup. And he's run okay, but I don't think. But this might, if it's one of his horses, I remember talking about the Giant Bolster, I think it was. It was when he came third in the Gold Cup, basically saying this might be the best he can produce anyway. So I don't know if the Protectorate will come any better than this. He's only a 7-year-old, but so just see what happens with him as well. Galvin, I'm surprised nearly how he came close to coming third instead of very well too late. I was coming home straight. I thought he was completely beaten, frankly, and he ran on very late, but just not close enough for a place. But I think he probably just wasn't good enough. I think he was just outpaced. I don't think there's any. Can't really think he'll do any better in the future in the race, frankly. Whooper guy, ran a bit better than last year, but isn't the horse good enough. Albert Photo, been a great horse, 2 Gold Cups, third of the race as well, but frankly, he's been on a downgrade for a little while now, and might be a race for him somewhere. Certainly going to say the horse couldn't win a Grade 1, but I think he's not the Gold Cup. Stuart Forlonge, who actually didn't jump ideally, but jumped better than the horse has done in the past, who's falling 4 times, and I think is it 10 efforts, really. There's no horse I want to be. I think it's about people, someone I wouldn't want to be following the horse really as a jockey, frankly. The horse just can't jump. He has it 4 times until like his previous 10 races, obviously not counting today. And he's ran a fair race. And a small bit better on Santini, just in case the horse actually came back to some sort of form. And he ran away for a while, but it was never really there. I White won a big race early on, but then it all came too good. And the other 2 were pulled up to the Fly and Chantry House. Chantry House is never travelling, frankly. And it's just, he looks like he might be a very inconsistent horse now. And you're looking at his form from, say, February last year. He had 4 wins in a row. Would it Weatherby, winning the Golden Miller Chase at the festival, and winning the Marmite Novices Chase, cruising with a 2-runner intermediate race at Sandown in November, but then pulled up to very disappointing as a favourite of King George, come back to form in the Cotswold Chase. But he's beating Santini to 2nd place, I White's 3rd, Puerto Rico 4, and Superbets 5, and it's clear that is just not good enough form, really. I mean, he did what he needed to do, but Santini and I were beating the Gold Cup. Stanley House but isn't good enough, I think, quite simply. And he made him he's good enough for King George, wasn't good enough for a Gold Cup, and I think he's an okay horse, but he's just not. I just don't think he's top in this sort of class by any means. Tornado Flyer ran okay for a while, but the start didn't fall away. Stewart's looking to the race, saying that Galvin didn't parade because he was getting fractions parade ring and was given permission to go straight to post, so that may affect his performance. Jolly George Whooper guy suspended for 2 days using his whip above the permitted level after reaching penultimate fence. And Dylan Moore's talking about Tornado Flyer, said he made jumping mistakes. I've been a really dramatic fox of the chase, and I generally thought that Billaway was never going to win. I thought he just wasn't going to get up in time. Billy White and Patrick Mullins there. I was critical of Patrick Mullins 2 years ago in my videos there, about a couple of rides he gave. Now I have to say there's 2 arguments about that now. Is A, was I wrong, and I have to admit I may well have been, or B, did he just put 2 rides and weren't great? And I think, sadly, it may well be where I was wrong. But I certainly was critical of him there. You can't be critical of him in this race. It was a brilliant ride to get the horse up. He seemed to be struggling to get there. Farrell said so for wing leader in a way, because the horse had done so well. Minded me of 2004 Football and Kimura Chase, where Maximise came for Klaus instead of a Merchant Friend. And Merchant was just dying of a running basically on Maximise nicked the race, and also one I was lost at in the Football and the Kimura again, actually, 96, where bizarrely and Corin Per and Money On ran up steam, it looked like, up the one in, only to be called by Stop the Waller, and Uncle Per then, a month later, came 2nd Grand National. But he seems to be actually seemed to run up steam in the Football and Kimura. Very strange. Then a month later, it was actually a couple of weeks later, actually, it wasn't even a month. They said he actually got called Grand National by Rough Crest. And well, maybe it was a slightly weak Grand National, one of the, where there was actually not even 30 runners. Miles Bob and Co. David Max, unfortunately, the horse falling there. But there's a right old battle between leading 2. And they started looking towards the end of the race and how am we getting round here? And in fact, it's only 6 finished. With Bobico the only 4 and everyone else pulled up. And it's only 6 ending rounds. Not many of folk centres, really. The ground was effectively good to soft. And I think it's a bit of a surprise so few got round in the race. But Billaway, having come 2nd the last 2 years, it's great to see the horse win. Some made a slightly sarcastic comment I saw on following Twitter saying it's a great win for the point trainer William Mullins as a family victory. Being sarcastic about William Mullins, obviously a major national trainer, of course, winning, and he's with Patrick on board. There's not much you can do. I mean, Paul Nicholls won as a professional trainer of this race. I think it's not. It's nice if the smaller stables win it, but it's not. I'm not the only people who run the race. And it was nice, as I said, it's nice to see a horse finally get his head in front, having been 2nd 2 times in a row. However, talking about Patrick Mullins, and there is an issue here, he was spending 4 days at some point. Now it depends when it's going to be. I mean, because he's amateur, of course, there's 4 days. There's a controversy about Samuel Whaley Cohen, who I'm a fan of as a rider, made a complete balls up, frankly, faking him a number of years ago. I'm not the only jockey to mess this up at Fakenham, I have to say, professional or amateur, and jumped the wrong side at Fakenham, and it can be a bit confusing, Fakenham as a track. And was wrong about being banned, but it was an amateur. Where was he going to be banned just when he wasn't riding anyway? And this words here from the BHA are spending for 4 days, or notes to be words from the BHA are spending for 4 days, or notes to be referred to him by the head office of BHA, and Versailles for using a whip above the permitted level from turning in. So he's obviously overdone it, frankly. He's won the race, but 4 days, I don't know how many hands he hit the horse, but obviously the steward's saying it's too many. As always, whip rule is always a fantasy bit debatable. I think the number of uses of a whip, I think it's a red herring, and I think BHA made a mistake in changing that. In that you're trying to appeal to people who are interested in horse racing, who don't know about how cushioned a whip actually is. I remember watching a documentary about Irish horse racing jockeys, and it was Barry Geraghty, I think possibly Ruby Walsh, and Davy Russell, the battle for the Irish Championship. And Barry Geraghty just takes the horse's whip in his hand and just smacks against his hand very hard a lot of times. He doesn't flinch, and it's not like he's a lunatic. It's because it doesn't really hurt, and it's cushioned to make a noise, not really to actually hurt the horse. I mean, Milt's whips maybe in the distant past may well have done that, but they're certainly not in recent decades. And they're also arguing it's almost now getting to either go without the whip or remove the restrictions. And this is what you were saying, right, you shouldn't have done what you're doing with the whip. You're going to get a suspension, but it shouldn't matter about what Rocky was doing rather than how many times it was. Also, that same with Point of Honor was 6, so signs of post-race ataxia. And now ataxia is hand-eye coordination type disability. That's something dyspraxia, which is slightly less serious version of that. But it's something that affects humans. I used to know, sadly passed away, a woman who suffered from ataxia, and horses obviously do as well. I didn't know that actually, but it's to do with coordination. And so there's a lack of coordination there, whether it's to do with the race or whether it's to do with just more general issue of a horse, I don't know. Move on to the 6th race, the Mare's Chase. Official Liberty Mare's Chase. I've said at least one video, I don't like that name. I think it was nepotism because Robert Whaley Cohen, the father Sam Whaley Cohen, used to be chairman of Cheltenham, and I think the horse did remind me of Fleet back in the day, I think 2003, something like that. So it was a good mare, but there's other options I could have found to name this race after, perfectly frank, although a lot of the mares, so you've learnt one better hurdlers rather than winning the fences, but Glencarroll Lady won the Gold Cup in 72 as a mare. Well, no mare's allowance as well in those days. Obviously, has an Irish race named after her. Dorman obviously has the Dorman Hurdle. Now, frankly, if I'm not necessarily a fan of the Dorman Hurdle, and I'm certainly, when I get round to it, I'm not going to do it tonight because it's just going to take. I've got other things I want to do, like eat. Of course, I need to get some food. Finish off a video on about how a 3-day festival could work. I was saying that I like a 4-day festival, and then it would be a 3-day as my second choice, but not a 5-day festival. So that would be my third choice, easily a 5-day festival. But you could lose the Dawn Run hurdle of this, and I would like to race after Dawn Run, but maybe have a mare's hurdle named after Dawn Run. But if you're interested in that, hopefully I'll put that out the next day or two. But I don't have a name of a race, and I think this race, I'm not even sure it's necessary at all, even a 4-day festival. I think with the Centenary Officers Chase, with the race they got rid of to bring this in, I made a better race actually. I'm not sure there's any great point to this existing. But Ellie won the race. Second last year, so wins it this year. But in a very tight finish. It's a good race, really, with two outsiders, Pick Legend of Scarlet and Dove. With Pick Legend of Scarlet Dove very close to winning. May not be the greatest race in the end. Favourite one, no race. Man, I don't want a shocker. Racing Post saying, him Wilson running, saying that big vets couldn't find anything wrong with the horse. Super BHA, I'm guessing, said the same. David Ross, slightly more information from them. David Ross is saying the horse jumped right-handed throughout, made several mistakes, and really that was the issue. She was never travelling at all, frankly. Always at the back. Paul Townend said Concertista, 5th place jumped poorly, also who's a novice. There's a great record at the festival, and one bet always annoys me, because actually, I don't know why I put a quid or so, couple of quid each way and made them alley. I don't know why I did, actually. And actually, she won a good race. I was up and still chances, actually. I think you've been placed at least. Second last when she fell. Won a good race. And that made quite perform because she shouldn't have been up there, frankly. Because she shouldn't be nowhere near it. And she was winning a good race, but maybe Westerfield may not have been any good. Well, I said about Concertisto, must be 2019, yeah. That she's winning as a as a debutant in what was a Dawn Run Hurdle, not Mare's Novice Hurdle at the festival. And I thought, why is Mullins doing that? And I put a 10 130 to 1 on Betfair, and she lost by, it was a short header on the nose. It was so infuriating that she came so close to winning without actually winning. She then cruised them next year, but I mean, about I got what, she was 5-2 or something. Don't know, can't remember what it was. But I didn't back it that time because it was just too short for me to really bother with. And easily at the festival, I had 9-2 in fact, so a bit slightly higher price. In 2020, Umbrella Mare's Hurdle, she was second by a head, but 11-10 on. And here's 2-1 favourite. It's been a bit disappointing, frankly. As St. Paul's Island said, she didn't jump very well, which I don't think she did. Go to the final race, Martin Pipe Hurdle. A note here, I just checked when this changed. That all the conditional jockeys now, we don't have conditional allowances in the race. It used to be the case that they got the allowances in the race. Now I think that's right that changed, because you want the conditionals taken on and level terms. Not, obviously conditionals should have allowances in races to allow the coach connections to try to give contestants a chance, because bang, if they didn't do that, they may never get a chance at all, and where do future jockeys come from? But at some point, they always changed to move weight allowances completely. Yes, 2019. I took longer than I expected trying to sort out Westport's website there. Yeah, the results previously. 2019, the allowances were removed. So River Banbridge battling on over Cobbler's Dream. Bit of chaos in the race. So I had 2 horses. Had 1 horse, unfortunately. Ulrich was a non-runner. Herbie as well, he was in the race. I didn't really see the horse very much. So he came 9th, never really involved. He's a hardy bloke. I put on Twitter a hilarious comment that as a misnamed horse, as he was very fractious at the start of the race, and he basically was throwing off his jockey, and obviously was not keen at all to be going down to the start. And Langendan was brought down at the second. Because at the event, I said at the Enough Museum, very interesting event, of using some protected colour onto the Roman altars in the museum. Because what you might not know is that back in say this is Hadrian's war era, and also in ancient Greece, there used to be colour on these things. It's an obsession thinking everything was white and marble. It wasn't. It used to be colour. A lot of the things like the Acropolis, places like that, and it just wore off over the millennia. It's actually wore off. And it's showing what it would have looked like. It's really brilliant, I think. It was parts of the museum, and it's really worth doing. Actually, Great Enough Museum in Newcastle upon Tyne. But that meant I had to watch the Martin Hurdle in town, because I wasn't sure I'd have enough time. Probably didn't to get from my house to walk in just to get there to see the race. So I went after into town between the Mare's Chase and Martin Hurdle. But there's a bloke next to him in the book. He's popped into one at Betfred and to manage to get to as one next to Haymarket Metro Station, and he was not happy with Langendan. I don't know. He backed like a Langendan. I made it, and he was told it fall and was most upset. And I knew one horse had been brought down. I didn't know which one it was of the 2. And back in my thinking maybe I should have. How do you want to say seen it? I said it was actually brought down. I doubt that would improve his mood at all. There was another one gone about a couple of days later, Lucky Max, and he went off about something like kids. I was like, I could have my time thinking like a Scooby-Doo villain with pesky kids or whatever the line was. And then he went on about fences, and I was thinking to myself, hurdle, son. But again, what sort of thing I would say to somebody if I'd fancy being hit or something? I think he's lost his equilibrium at that point. Banbridge holding off, as I said, Cobbler's Dream of that one, with Horror Games in 3rd place. A win there for Joseph Bryan, of course, very well known in the past as a top quality flat jockey. He came a bit large for the game, become a really good trainer of actually more jumpers as well. Of course, his famous dad, Aidan O'Brien, and his And he's more famous father, Vincent O'Brien. No, of course, I don't know. Vincent O'Brien, of course, is not Aidan O'Brien's dad. There's a very interesting Twitter feed from Manlog's daughter, which is very worth following, on just a genuine horse racing, Irish guy, always worth interest. And he always makes this joke about claiming that Vincent O'Brien is actually Aidan O'Brien's dad, and it's sort of fishing, basically, so I would say, looking for replies, just so people say, no, he's not, and trying to wheel another one in. As a famous name, anyway, the O'Brien name, but Joseph O'Brien, winning the final race of the festival. So that's it, until, frankly, the Supreme Novices Hurdle next year. I have to put him out my diaries to get that in there. As I said, I put a video up about Cheltenham Festival races, where I think I'll see how a 3-day festival might work with 7 races per day. There's a Twitter comment made on it's Racing UK, and well, it wasn't Juvia, that's from the name, not Racing UK anymore, saying it was almost like the end of the festival as a carnival atmosphere. I think it was positive, and I think it'd be whatever the bloody song was singing with darts is, which whatever the song, I can't bother to look it up really, not a fan of the song. I like the darts actually, but as I was saying, the carnival atmosphere, and it was Ian Bartlett stating it, and they're almost saying this racing TV Twitter comment saying Ian Bartlett seemed as a positive thing. I think he was just doing it as a sort of. He didn't seem to. It's difficult to say what Ian Bartlett's view was in regards to the West commentator, because it seemed a bit ambivalent. I don't think he was necessarily the greatest fan either of this, but it's like chanting, and I'm thinking. I can't look comments to a tweet replies from Racing TV. My view is I replied, and my view as well is it's not necessarily what I want to see. Football I've been chanting's fine, I don't really mind that, it's not an issue. The darts is the issues, I think, with darts. I mean, but crowds bring a lot of money in, and that's good for a sport like darts. But there's too many times you think of people just chanting without seeing what's happening in the game. Darts is a persistent sport, and it puts some players off. Really, no, Mervyn King, not a great fan of Mervyn King. I think he's a bit of a prat sometimes, but he plays with earplugs in, probably for a very good reason. But with horse racing, you're fractious animals, and you don't really want chanting, cheering, okay, but singing, it's just slightly worrying. I don't want to sound like a boring git, but here someone's wondering about how many people are racing nowadays, with cocaine being cheap, or drink, what's going on there. I mean, I say some major meetings, the idiot factor is higher. Ladies' days can be about major meetings like Grand National, can be like that, Derby can be like that. People don't go racing normally. I mean, okay, you don't necessarily want just racing just to be a wet Tuesday at Plumpton or something, but you also don't want it to become. You worry about fights taking place. It's more of a flat it's happened at, but I just worry a bit about this. I'm not the only person who is. I mean, part of this is because the meeting was closed doors last year, and I think it's obviously not this year. Because when I went in 2016, the only time I've been was 4 days then. Final race, didn't expect this was a cheaper final race, didn't expect that. Apparently that's it was the first race I expected to do, of course, every day, but final race, especially for novices, final race did as well, fair enough, I joined in with that, okay. But that's enough. I don't think you need to start chanting football songs basically at horse racing.